Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Mollie Carmichael with Zonda's Inspirational Leadership Series, joined by the industry's best in all things real estate. These leaders are literally designing our future for many generations to come with new communities, home designs, technology, retail centers, infrastructure, and so much more. This series is about who they are, how they got started, who inspired them, and their journey to the top. So let's get started. Today, we are joined with Ryan Marshall, the President and Chief Executive Officer for Pulte Group. I'm a huge fan of Pulte and Ryan's. I worked at the company for 8 years, and Ryan's probably one of the nicest guys in the industry. Pulte Group today is one of the largest public builders building homes throughout the country from the East to West Coast. They are a $15 billion company with 29,000 homes built last year. And as you might imagine, Ryan's a pretty busy guy. I think the part I love the most about Ryan, and you'll see it in this interview, he's a super humble guy and he's super approachable. He's that leader that everybody wants to work for. He's got a long history in home building with humble beginnings. And so I think you're going to really enjoy his story. So let's hear from Ryan about his career, his life, and what it takes to be an inspirational leader. Please join me in welcoming Ryan Marshall. Welcome. We are here today with Ryan Marshall. He's the Chief Executive Officer for Pulte Homes. And welcome, Ryan. Glad to have you here.
Glad to be here, Mollie, and it's great to see you.
Definitely a privilege for sure, especially given my roots with the great Pulte team. We're going to start out today to talk a little bit about you and what you're doing and what the team's doing. But first, let's start with you. In the job that you do on a daily basis, can you share with everyone, what is it that you do every day?
Well, Mollie, the unique thing about the job title of CEO is there's not a consistent job description that I think goes with that role. So you kind of have the opportunity to allocate time where you are most comfortable and maybe where you find the opportunity to make the biggest difference. For me, I spend a fair amount of time with our board. I spend a fair amount of time with our investors. I spend a lot of time with our team, specifically our field team, and a decent amount of time thinking about our strategy. So those are kind of the big kind of buckets that I think about and where I really allocate and spend my time.
What is it that you love the most in your job?
What I love the most, I love interfacing with our team members, solving problems. That's
You're good at that in my experience. I could see that.
That's where I'm happiest.
Thank God.
And look, I've been doing this long enough that I've seen a variety of problems, come across the desk, and no matter the market cycle that we're in, good economic cycles, maybe down economic cycles, there's always challenges to overcome. As good as the last 2 or so years have been for this industry, we've had a lot of production challenges and supply chain challenges. I was also doing this in 2007 and 8 when we were going through, a very different housing environment. And certainly the challenges then were much less fun, but probably equally as hard to solve. So my favorite thing is really solving problems. I also like spending time on strategy, thinking about the decisions that we're making today that are going to make our company better 5 years from now, 10 years from now, even beyond maybe the time frame when I'm doing this job.
I think I like that the best too. I get it. Going way back when you started with Pulte, I think I was even there with the company at the time. What brought you to Pulte? Like, what was it that you said, like, how did that sort of connect?
Well, it's a funny story, Mollie. The way I got to Pulte, when I was going through getting my master's in business at Arizona State, I had really young kids at the time. So I was working while I was going to my MBA program, and I was working as a recruiter specifically for accountants, and Pulte was one of my clients. And so I got to know the firm because they were a client, and I got to know some of the team on the finance staff. And I said, boy, this seems like just such a great company. If there was ever an opportunity to join the company, I would. And sure enough, there was an opportunity that came up, and essentially I applied for it and interviewed and got the job. And that's how I ended up at Pulte. At an earlier part in my career, before I went back to graduate school, I had the opportunity to buy a gas station. And with that gas station, I developed some of the out parcels around the gas station that I owned. And that was probably the first real estate deal, commercial real estate deal that I ever did. And I think that was, if I look back in my career, that's when it got in my blood. And that's when I really said, I want to be involved in real estate. Little did I know that it would, be residential real estate. But looking back on kind of the experiences that I've had and the opportunities that this career has given me, I'm so grateful for what Pulte has meant to me and my family and those around me.
Me too. I get it. No, it's a great place to be. So when you bought that piece of land, where was that? Was that in Arizona?
No, it was in a town outside of Salt Lake. It was really right off of Interstate 80. So it was kind of an interstate-based gas station, and it was several acres of property, and I was in way over my head. But what an experience it was.
What spurred that? Like, how did that happen?
Another kind of
with little kids and starting out. I mean, that's a bold move at it.
Yeah, it was something that I did that's how I originally put myself through undergraduate school, as I was involved in the gas station business. And so I knew a little bit about it, finished my undergraduate degree, was in public accounting. And when I left public accounting, that was my next adventure, was buying my own gas station.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Okay, well, we're going to go back a little bit farther, even a lot further. So tell us a little bit about you growing up, kind of where you grew up, and, what is it that you wanted to do when you were a young Ryan Marshall? Maybe I always use the age 8. I don't know why, but tell us a little bit about you, where you grew up, and some of that, and what did you want to do when you were young?
Yeah, so I grew up in a fairly small town outside of Salt Lake City. My dad was a veterinarian. Our town had about 10,000 people, not employees, but 10,000 people lived in our town. 2 stoplights, 1 McDonald's, 1 high school. That was the kind of town that I grew up in. That was a big part of my younger years. There was a period of time when we moved to a really rural part of Utah when my dad was running a big cattle ranch. There were only 150 people in that town, and the school.
You're kind of a cowboy back in the day.
Yes, and so that's what I was going to say. When I was 8, I wanted to be a cowboy because that's the world that we lived in. And, one of my big highlights as an 8, 9, 10-year-old was I was able to go to essentially the town roundup, which is we would go up into the mountains and you would round up all the cattle from being up in the mountains in the summer, and you'd bring them all home. At age 8, I thought I was going to be a cowboy for the rest of my life.
What a great way to grow up.
There were some good memories. Yeah,
I would think so. How do you blend that into your family life today? Do you kind of have you engaged your kids into any of that at all? Or, I mean, that's a pretty neat way to grow up.
Not to the level that I grew up that way, Mollie. What I have tried to blend into, my kids' lives are the value of hard work, the value of community, the value of knowing how to do things with your hands and being able to be self-sufficient. I have tried to teach, my kids that. I've got 3 boys. They're quickly becoming adults in their own right. Some of them have picked up some of those skills better than others. But there's just no substitute for life experience. And when you're a young kid growing up on a farm and learning how to run machinery and fix machinery, it's hard to replicate that in the city. And while, I love the life that I've had as an adult, it's also
Sure.
meant that I've mostly lived in big cities. Um, and so the one thing that I do hang on to is I still plant a small garden every year, which
Nice.
was kind of part of how I grew up as well. And so, there is some level of satisfaction from planting seeds and seeing fresh produce show up, 2 or 3 months later.
For sure. And I also think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just kind of rolling up your sleeves and learning how to do some of that hard work. I think that's what carries into your adult life. I had a very similar background, not quite on a farm, but started working with my parents. They had a little store, and I started working when I was 8. And weekends, nights, all of that. It just, we learned to work hard at a very young age, and I really attribute some of my life today to that.
Totally agree.
Yeah, absolutely. So now fast forward. So you're living on a farm with your parents. You want to be a cowboy. How did you end up, getting to where you chose a new career? Obviously,
Well,
I love the story about sort of the land buy and the gas station and some of that stuff, but tell us a little bit about your journey getting to the place you are today.
it was a little bit of an accident, and there was some
Those are the best
failure.
kind. I get it.
There was some failure in life, and I always
Yeah,
say
right.
sometimes the best lessons in life come from failure. I
I agree.
Once I went to college, I thought I was going to be a doctor. My dad was a veterinarian, and he was certainly kind of pushing science-based careers, and so I was on a pre-med track. I don't think I officially.
Veterinarian, Ryan, or any specific sort of, did you know what kind of doctor you wanted to be?
No, just MD of some sort. I
Yeah,
was on
okay.
a pre-med track and to go to medical school, not veterinary medicine, but human medicine. And I don't think I officially flunked out, but it felt like I flunked out of organic chemistry and physics. And I was, I
Chemistry is
remember
hard.
it's hard. And I
It's
remember like it
hard.
was yesterday that I didn't know what I was going to do kind of with my life and career, because at the rate I was on, I knew I wasn't going to get into medical school. And I got some advice that, I think I'd expressed some interest in business, and I got some advice that accounting might be a great path, even if you don't end up ultimately pursuing that as a career. It's just such a good, foundational base for really any kind of business. So I signed up for Accounting 101, and it clicked for me. And that began my journey to be an accountant. And once I graduated, I went into public accounting. I absolutely credit the experience that I had in undergraduate, my undergraduate program, in the accounting program I was in, as well as the experience that I got with working in public accounting, to the many of the life lessons and many of the lessons that I learned about business, I credit to that education and to that experience in public accounting. So that's how I ended up there. And Pulte's got a history of really bringing the finance and accounting staff deep into the operations. And it
Agreed.
was part of the reason that I was so excited to potentially join the company. When I joined the company, I knew little to nothing about home building, but just through our training and development program, I was given so many opportunities to really learn the operations, to really learn about the strategy of buying residential real estate. And, it's very much part of who I am today, and what's, made my career a success, and continues to make our company a success.
So Ryan, it really looks like, as you look at the company, it's interesting to hear your comments on sort of the deep roots in finance, given you and both John Chadwick as the COO and CEO coming from that channel. And that's definitely very apparent. I think that's smart and strong. But let me ask you honestly, how do you go from, wanting to be a cowboy to moving? I mean, that's a drastic shift, right? Going into finance. What kept you engaged?
I think one of the things that's about me from a personality standpoint is I've got a lot of interests, and there's a lot of things that I've tried and a lot of things that I still want to try. As I got into high school, I was very involved with the business club, and I did a number of things during the summers where I would go to, summer camps that were essentially, business type summer camps, and mock stock market type exercises and things like that. So I think I had, a desire to know more about business. That the house, my parents, both college educated, but my dad was, of a science mind. And so I felt like we didn't talk a lot about kind of the business world in our house. And for whatever reason, I was always intrigued by it. So today I think I know a fair amount about business, but I do have a desire to still be a cowboy. At some point in my life, I hope that I can have a few cows and have a hobby farm, if you will, because it is still very much a part of who I am.
It's funny. I think we all have that big desire to be outdoors and physical. And then, it sounds like you really fell in love with the business side. You're doing pretty good too, by the way. So let's go into, let's jump over a little bit to Pulte and kind of what you guys are doing there. What do you guys really invest in as far as what makes you guys different as a home builder? What makes a great home? How do you guys set yourself apart? I mean, you guys have a pretty big organization, from Del Webb on the active adult side, as well as the conventional family side.
Well, specific to home building, I think some of the things that we've done that differentiate us, we've really focused on the design of our homes. So we spent a lot of time researching with customers, talking to customers, doing focus groups, working to innovate and create designs that really work for the way that people live. We put a tremendous amount of time and effort into the quality of the homes that we build, the materials that we use, the materials that we choose, the way that we construct them, the way that we inspect quality inside of the company. I think we've made that a real priority. We have focused on Net Promoter Score. And
explain Net Promoter Score.
So the idea is at the end of, at several points in the journey, and the one that we really pay attention to is after 1 year of a customer living in one of our homes, we ask them, would you refer us to a friend or a family member? And it's a yes or a no answer. It's on a 1 to 10 scale. And so you subtract the promoters from the detractors based on the 1 to 10 scale that you get, and you end up with a Net Promoter Score. So a lot of businesses, industries use it. That's something that we've really focused on to make sure that the experience that we're creating for our customers is not only do they have a great home that's designed well, the quality of the home and the way it's built is above their expectations. Inevitably, things will occasionally go wrong and break, and when that happens, we want to provide outstanding service. We think that's something that will withstand the test of time and continue to protect our brand and our reputation. Mollie, I think we do a really nice job picking locations where we put communities. Certainly, we're part of housing is you've always got to find that next great spot. I think the market intelligence team that we have here, which you're very familiar with, I think we do just a really nice job identifying the consumer that we're trying to serve and understanding what their ultimate motivations are for why they decide to live where they're going to live. I'm really proud of our brands. All of our brands are great, but I'm very proud of the Del Webb brand. I think it's something that is unique and special in housing overall. And we've continued to invest in and protect the Del Webb brand as something very special to our company and to this industry.
I agree. It's interesting to see that change over time. And what do you say to the industry that says, I think the Del Webb brand is dated?
Well, I guess I'd probe a little more on why somebody feels it's dated.
And by the way, I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah.
I think, in fact, the people that usually say that are the people that have an income and a net worth and a lot of things that don't tie to who the real buyer is and consumer is for Del Webb, because Del Webb's so much about lifestyle and long-term affordability and other factors. But anyways, just wanted to caveat that.
Yeah, Molly, I think if you go back to the original roots of what the Del Webb communities were meant to be, it was about providing a relatively affordable opportunity for a retiree that had never enjoyed that type of planned community, that type of facilitated lifestyle.
Exactly.
And so we were able to
Totally agree.
create an amazing community in great locations that had a really nice, high quality home. But, really what was unique and special was the lifestyle and the community that you were moving into. It was more about that than it was the home itself.
And feeling financially secure at the same time.
Yeah.
Right.
Even today, we still have many of our residents, they maintain, a primary residence or the original home that they lived in, whether it was somewhere up north or in another city. And then they've got their Del Webb home in the Carolinas or in Florida or in Arizona or Las Vegas, where, we've got many of our Del Webb communities. So look, it's not a concept or a lifestyle that's for everybody. But, we certainly think that for the consumer that we're going after and trying to serve, I think it's a phenomenal offering. And we think it really continues to resonate with customers.
I think so too. And I think you guys are doing a lot to really even take it to the next level too, as I understand. So I remember the very first time I started working with Del Webb, I went and stayed at a Del Webb community, and I stayed in a vacation villa. And I had perceptions of what I thought it was. And when I got there, I think within an hour, I was calling my father to live there. I mean, I just could not believe how amazing and active and fresh. And I was blown away. So yeah.
We're seeing a lot of our residents are working longer than they've ever worked. They've got interests and hobbies that have changed over the last 25 years. So, as an example, 25 years ago, almost every single Del Webb community was developed with a golf course. Today, we do very few, if any, golf courses. We find that the residents can access the surrounding golf courses. They're more interested in, physical fitness, wellness, mindfulness,
Totally.
having access to continuing education, good access and proximity to the employment corridor, because we find that many of our residents are still working, even if it's just part-time.
Yeah, I think the golf portion of it really ends up being about privacy and view more than anything, and just having that open green space. But golf is coming back, just so you know. I mean, it's pretty funny what I think COVID's done with golf. Now you're seeing a much younger generation really engage in golf, and it'll be interesting to see that evolve over time. So we'll see.
We need to figure out how to make 18 holes last less than 4 hours.
We have to figure out how to make money with golf courses. I think that's the key. That's a big part of it. Well, let me ask you, I'm going to do a couple of quick rounds with you on sort of your favorites. A little bit more about Ryan Marshall again. What's your favorite sport today?
Favorite sport is snow skiing. I love the outdoors. Grew up in Utah. I love being in the mountains, and there's something about the combination of being outside and the technical aspects, along with some of the thrill of snow skiing that I really love. So
Ryan, tell us what your favorite pastime is.
Well, one of the things that I love to do, Molly, is I like to cook.
Nice.
So I travel a lot during the week. I eat out a lot. I come home, late more often than not. So my wife is spectacular. She handles most of the cooking and taking care of the household during the week. And on the weekends, we kind of switch roles, and we enjoy doing it together. And I enjoy kind of cooking on the weekends. So I've tried to get better at it over the years, and something that I really enjoy doing.
Would you say gourmet cook?
I don't know if I'd go so far as to say gourmet. I really like, barbecue, grilling,
Sure.
smoking, smoker type stuff.
Yeah.
I do a fair amount of, I would say I'm probably more of a comfort food cook. And I do enjoy baking things, which was something that I got from my mom.
Nice.
So homemade breads and, pies and cookies and things like that. I enjoy kind of playing around with that as well.
God, what a great couple the two of you must be together. That's
We,
awesome.
we, we have to exercise in order to
I was gonna say.
enjoy all the food that we like to cook.
I know. I don't know how you. Yeah, no, but I think I saw you running at Builder 100, so you seem to be pretty active too. Um, Favorite place to vacation?
Utah, without a doubt.
Nice.
And I love it in the winter. I love it in the summer. Growing up there, I couldn't wait to leave. And essentially, I've lived my entire adult life, mostly on the East Coast. Every chance I get now, I like to go back to Utah. A lot of my family still lives there. So I feel
Nice.
like I can do the outdoor activities that I love. And I can also see family.
I think Utah is without a doubt probably the best kept secret in the country. I cannot figure out why it's not growing faster than it
We
is.
should keep
It's
it that way, Mollie.
unbelievable. I know, no, and I do get that, but it is so beautiful. It's the center of the US, so it's easy to travel. The kindest people in the world live there. I mean, it's just, I think, the best kept secret in the country. So we'll only be sending this to a few thousand people, but yeah. So let's do word association. I'm going to actually say a word, and what's the first thing that comes to your mind? The very first word I would say is quality.
The homes we build.
Nice. People.
Most important part of our company.
Agree. Home building.
Amazing career opportunity.
Good answer. Affordable.
Hard to find these days.
Really hard to find these days. On that note, what advice would you give to a consumer looking for a home today? Would you buy today?
Absolutely, without question.
Why?
I think there's so much joy and memories and satisfaction that come from owning a home. And, other than maybe one really bad spot, 2006, 2007, 2008, I think there's been more wealth created in this country for individuals through owning a personal home. And I believe that will continue to be the case, Mollie. So, I think I definitely advise, a first-time home buyer to make sure you buy what you can afford. I don't think there's value or any joy in being house poor. But buy in a location that you think is going to make you or your spouse or your partner or your family happy, and enjoy, the aspects of home ownership, which I think are spectacular.
This is a really cute story, but the very last time I saw Bill Pulte, he came and spoke in front of our whole division. And at the very end, they said, final questions. And so I raised my hand and I said, what would you do different? And, and he was very understated, as you probably remember, just the sweetest man ever. And he paused and he said, well, I think I would have, and sorry, but this is what he said. He said, I think I would have invested less in the stock market. And I just wished I would have bought one home in every community I ever built, because I made about 4 to 6% in the stock market over, I think it was like a 40, 50-year period at that time. And he goes, I would have made more if I would have just bought one house in every community I built. And I thought, brilliant advice. I mean, that was awesome. So I think you're right. Why would you wait, and why would you give somebody else, thousands of dollars in rent and not benefit? Today in your job, where do you think you make the most difference?
I think the biggest difference, Mollie, is about maintaining the focus on what our strategy is. So the markets that we invest in, the the way that we go to market, the brands that we have, the way that we, the way that we think about the consumer, the way that we're serving the consumer, continuing to push the organization to be innovative. I think those are the areas that, where I spend my time. And I think it's really impactful, not only in our near-term operations, but, the future success of the company as well. This is a very long cycle business. The land that we're buying today, those will be the communities that we'll be living with for the next, in many cases, 4 to 5 years. And so, the decisions that we make about where we buy land, how we buy land, I think are really impactful.
I think that's spot on. So I asked Bill Pulte this. I'm going to ask you this too. What would you do different? Looking back.
I would tell you a couple of things I would do different. In probably 2012, 2013, we were really focused as a company on fixing some operational challenges that we had in the organization. That was an opportunity where we could have and probably should have grown more as an organization. And so I wasn't in this job at that point in time, but as much success as we've had as an organization, it would have been nice to, grow a little bit more in that time period.
As you look back at a young Ryan Marshall starting out in this business, what advice would you give him?
Be curious and be willing and frankly excited about learning all aspects of the business. A construction manager, the sales process, how to buy land, how to run a home building operation. I think the more curious that a young employee coming into this industry, I think, you'll find all kinds of opportunities. The other, advice I would give is be willing to take new challenges, even if it means moving out of a city that you love. It's tough. And I think we're seeing with the current generation, a reluctance to move out of the city that an individual currently lives in. And so my other piece of advice would be willing to, move a little bit. I moved a lot, maybe too much. But I think it can really pay dividends for new opportunities and growth in an individual's career.
Favorite place to live?
Favorite place for me was Florida.
Are you in Florida now?
I'm in Atlanta.
Okay. I don't know why I thought you were in Florida now. I don't know. Okay. Yeah, no, it makes sense that you would be in Atlanta.
We've been in Atlanta for about 8 years now, which we really enjoy as a family, but I really love living in Florida.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Let's talk about the people that have inspired you in your career. I'd love for you to share. I mean, I'm sure you've had mentors in your life that made a big difference in your career. Inside, I would say, the industry, but also kind of outside the industry. Like, who is it that you admire? And if you could share kind of why.
Yeah. So, early on, inspiration for me was my dad. My dad was, a child that grew up in kind of Depression era America. Real sense of kind of work ethic and the value of an honest, an honest day's work. And I still, credit my dad, even though we had very, very different career paths. Some of the things that are kind of core values for me, I know those came from my dad. In this industry, and specifically at Pulte, I had a couple of folks that were very influential in my early career. Kurt Van Hefty, Kurt was instrumental in hiring me to Pulte and taught me a lot about home building finance and more than just about home building finance, but it was about a lot of things home building. So, I'm always grateful for what I learned from Kurt and for hiring me in the first place. And I learned a ton from Bob Schaefer. I went to work for Bob.
I loved Bob Schaefer.
In our corporate office in Detroit in 2003. And, Bob was running our asset management committee or our investment committee. And I went to work for Bob as an analyst, and I learned more in that period of time than I've probably learned in any other job. So those are a few of the folks that, really made an impact on my career, at Pulte.
A lot of the people under Bob Schaefer really grew wonderfully well after his tenure there. So he must have been a great leader and a great guy for sure.
No question. No question.
Great guy. Well, Ryan, as always, I so appreciate your time and making the time to share your story, what you think it takes to be successful, and really what has been part of your success over the many years you've been doing what you've been doing. So thanks for joining us. Any sort of final words or anything like that? It's been such a pleasure. I love catching up.
Well, Mollie, thank you. It's been great to chat with you today. I think my final parting words of wisdom would be that this is an exciting industry to be in. There will certainly be ups and downs and times when it feels better than others, but for having spent the majority of my adult life and the most of my career in housing, I'm just so thrilled and appreciative and grateful for what this company has done for me and my family personally, but even bigger than the company, what the industry has done. And it's just such an exciting place to have a career. And so I'd encourage many of our younger employees and younger associates that are in the industry to stick with it. It's a really, really great industry.
I agree. It's like a second family, and for Pulte too, I think you're part of a great family. So thanks for all you guys are all doing for us. You're building our future, and we appreciate it. Thank you again for joining us. This is Mollie Carmichael, and I hope you enjoyed this series. Please hit like if you liked today's broadcast, and subscribe if you'd like to hear more from the best and the brightest in our industry. Take care, everyone, and I hope you join us again next time.